Hi everyone. So we're coming to the end of the year, and I thought I'd use this opportunity to discuss my stats for the year ending 2025 and talk about my mistakes, my biggest mistakes, and talk about the progress that I've been making over the past few months. If you're new to the channel, my name is Ben. I've been trading since February 2025, and I've been documenting my journey for the past few months. So I'm still not profitable yet. I'm in a drawdown, quite a big drawdown, if I may say so myself, for where I am in financially anyway. But the point is that I've stopped the bleeding and I'm on the mend. So why don't you stick around and I'll take you through my stats, talk about the progress I made, the mistakes that I made, and maybe you could also avoid those and maybe you could learn something from it. Of course, I spent quite a lot of time looking at my stats, and I'm still taking this time and the next week or so before going into the new year, digging deeper to make sure I'm really prepared for next year, so I can start off the year in a good way with some very strong agenda. Ultimately, my goal and my plan is to scale up and is to make this profitable. And I'm not going to be wanting to waste my time and resources and money just trading very small share size. But it may not come to you as a surprise that I am trading very small share size at the moment in comparison to what I used to trade with at the beginning of the year. And this is just to tighten things up and make sure that I'm on the right track. And also, the market doesn't really allow for me to increase size anyway, given how cold it's been over the past few months. All right, so let's jump on the screen share and have a look at some of these stats a bit closer. All right, so the moment of truth. I'm down $17,600 this year gross. That doesn't include the fees and the commission that I paid so far. The actual net drawdown is almost $31,608. So that includes the fees and the commission. The overall big picture is that I don't have a big problem with win rates, right? Because I'm above 50%. I've got a risk management issue and expectancy issue, which is something that I'm working on. My average winners are smaller than my average losers, and a 50% plus win rate should be profitable if the losses are controlled and fees are manageable, which in this case aren't. Okay, so that's and majority of this is contributed from earlier in the year, where I made the most big mistakes. We'll have a closer look in a second. My average trade P&L was minus $8, and based on that, my edge is negative, right? If you're looking at the entire year, my net edge is negative. So I'm statistically guaranteed to lose money over the many trades, and in this case, trading more makes it worse, not better. Now, if I scroll down to the cumulative P&L, which I've got screenshot of here because this is too distracting to use the actual chart itself. So you can see the early period, it was choppy, but survivable. There were some mistakes that kept going down, up and down, up and down. But then a sharp vertical drop in early March in this area. And then after that, a long, slow bleed, sadly. So you can see there's almost no meaningful recovery here, and just period of going sideways. And what this usually means is that strategy is not working and the market changed, and I've sized up too quickly during drawdown and started revenge trading after big losses. And I kept trading despite having this negative expectancy, right? So if I go back to this, and then you can see that my cumulative drawdown here as well, over the entire year. So the chart really screams that the system was broken, but I continued trading. So that's what it's really telling us. All right, so some of the key areas that stand out. I think if you look at the average hold times for winners versus losers, you can see that I'm holding winners for half a minute or less, 30 seconds or less. And average losers about a minute. And this is something that I need to focus on going forward next year as part of my plan. And another thing I want to highlight is that the fees were killing me more than I thought initially. So we're looking at about $12,000 there plus commission of around $14,000, right? So the net position being 31,608, the percentage of that I actually pay towards fees out of that my entire drawdown is around 44%. So 44% of my losses were structural and not bad trades. I wish it was just that figure, right? But it's obviously the harsh reality of it. So there is a silver lining there, right? But it also highlights that I overtraded, as you can see, 2,197. And even a slightly, based on what obviously we were looking at, even a slightly negative strategy becomes disastrous with the frequency of trades I was taking and the fees and commissions I was paying. So really, to I guess sum it up, the real lever here is for me to keep my losses smaller, take fewer trades, lower fees, and a better R&R, so risk to reward ratio. Okay, so that's the overall stats, but I wanted to take you back to some of the earlier months, because I think this would be quite interesting. This will really highlight that steep drop that we saw here in this area, so you can see why and how it happened. So I'm going to look at February for now. So I started, I funded an account. I was with CMEG at this point, and I was, you can see I was overtrading some of these days, 22 trades, but the market was relatively hot at that point in the year. It was relatively hot. Some bigger losses there. I mean, quite big losses. There was no risk management here at all whatsoever. I didn't have a maximum loss with my broker at all. 47 trades, right? And let's just look at the commissions on that day. 47 trades. $995. So my net P&L for that day was $3,177. And just look at some of these trades that I took. I got into a position, you got to divide it by two, more than about 2,500, about 2,000 shares, and I only made $97. Really bad R&R here. So big losses, and then I started implementing this strategy, which was working for a while. So I was taking one trade at a particular time. The market was, it looked like there was a repetition there in terms of the pattern, and I was able to capture some really good moves. In fact, when I looked at some of these moves, I could have, that day could have been like a $7,000 day. I just didn't hold it well enough. Again, novice trader, didn't know what I was doing. So these are the sort of days that would actually impact your P&L. But it meant that on surface, I was green. I had that on surface, that was my biggest green month. But the reality of it was that the fees that I was paying on my overtrading days meant that I was still negative, even though on surface it was a green month, because of the overtrading and the fees that CMEG was absolutely killing me, and I was stupid. $6,000 loss there on that week. Yeah, but whereas the days where I took one trade, you can see I'm keeping most of the money. So that was February, and I went into March thinking that, okay, here we go. March, I'll continue with the same pattern, but I wasn't ready for March. It suddenly cooled down. There was a huge shift, sudden shift, and I wasn't used to it. This is why it's so important that you start with smaller share size, and you just go through different cycles in the market to see, to experience it, to be aware of it, and so you can manage your expectancy of what the day might bring for you. And I started the week really well, and I was full of confidence, right? I was full of confidence. I was almost break even at this point, I think, even though this shows that I was, but I think overall, if you look at the drawdown, etc., then I probably was just about break even. And I was having some solid days. Like for a novice trader, I was making, $2,000 almost on that day, another 1,700. So that week, if I had stopped trading, I was up already. And if you forget about that day out, I would have been up. But then disaster hit, and I just got triggered. I didn't have any risk management in place. I overtraded, and I was taking bigger and bigger positions. Things were not going my way, and I didn't know how to handle it. And as you can see, the losses started adding up. The size got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then at this point, I think I lost about $6,000 or so. Then I went for a Hail Mary, and I got caught in a massive flush in one trade. It was an algo trade, algo spike that I got caught in. Got in with 4,000 shares. I think I lost. I think I averaged down as well. Yes, I averaged down. So all these bad habits. I lost almost $1.50. Almost $1 per share. $1.50, I'd say. Very terrible, terrible day. So I remember that day. I remember that day so clearly. Honestly, I don't think I could breathe on that day. It was just so that the emotions. I was just so emotionally charged. I just couldn't believe how in within a few seconds I doubled my loss. Firstly, that I had sustained that loss, but also within seconds I lost $6,000. And I wasn't prepared, right? That was most of my account gone. I think at that point, because I'd obviously been making money, I was almost close to $20-something thousand. But from previous month, my account size was growing, and I had a lot more leverage. And and you can see, if I had just taken it easy, I was able to perhaps recover. If I just sort of walked away from those losses, but there's more. Again, these wins should have not even been there. I was taking too much risk. So, of course, I managed to have some couple of green days after that, but the emotional damage that caused, and me just not accepting that loss and wanting to get back on top of it, meant that I wanted to get back to green. I wanted to recover straight away. I wanted to go back to flat again. And I was just trading crazy. Really uncontrollable month. Terrible, disastrous month. If you start trading, and if you're watching this, I hope this serves to you as a stark reminder of how things could go south very quickly. And I know in comparison to other people, there might be others who've sustained a lot bigger losses. But for me, it was a big losing month. Let's look at what that month was net very quickly. I think it was 23. So as you can see, that month alone contributed to most of my losses for this year. That sort of meant that I technically had blown my account. I couldn't stop the bleeding. And that feeling, just looking back at March, that feeling continued into April. And in April, actually, surprisingly, I sized down, but I'm still always trading. If I look at my net P&L, I think I was really down for April. Let's have a look at my net P&L. Oh, 850. So I think I tried to get some control back, but still overtrading, totally overtrading. Not where I should be, but where I should have been in terms of putting a big hard stop. So a bit of a slow bleed. In fact, that month meant that I had a lot more green days than any other month. It was a solid month all in all, but still overtrading, which meant that my actual net P&L was negative. And I sort of continued, and I became had to step back and question my trading overall. But market changing, I wasn't able to adapt. I don't think I'd still honed down the strategy, which meant that I was overtrading. In comparison, I genuinely wish, we had the heat and the momentum back then now, because I feel like I would have been able to capitalize on that momentum much, much better now than I did back then, because I would have not overtraded. I would have taken a handful of clean trades and capitalized on those, and it would have been such a smoother ride. But anyway, let's jump back on the screen share. And that sort of continued all the way to June. I think June, let's have a look at June again. Yeah, sort of slow bleed, sort of again overtrading, too many trades. A hotter market, no doubt, for sure. And I think it was sort of July where I started to step back, and I was like, I cannot continue. I kept putting money into the account, and I just couldn't continue like this. And I think August was the turning point for me. So I sized down, right? I started to think about sizing down. So this is actually my first green month, net and gross, believe it or not. If I look at August, yeah, $8.64. So my first green month, even though it's like nothing comparison to all the trades I was taking and the big size and the big swings in my P&L, August was my first green month. So that was a turning point for me. That was when I decided to size down 20 shares. That's the total volume, 20 in, 20 out. So August, my turning point. And then I started implementing a more of a stricter regime. So as you can see, my trade frequency increased. So I became very serious about, okay, I need to do this every day. I need to stick with it. So August was another good month. I did overtrade. Overtrading was still a thing. I hadn't implemented max loss at this point yet with my broker. So as you can see, I had a few outlier days. I think I only implemented max loss only recently, like 2 months ago. Even in October, I had a couple of red days. I think after October, that's where I started implementing max loss. And this is where I started documenting my trading. So if you go back to my YouTube channel and look at my journey, this is where I started documenting my journey. And things starting to look better, right? Although it was a hotter month, lot easier to take trades, but I was still technically overtrading. But I think my net P&L for August was negative, if I remember correctly. No, it was positive. So another green month. August, September, 2 green months in a row, which is progress, right? Progress, small but healthy progress in comparison to where we were at the beginning of the year, right? And then October, I made some mistakes. Again, some bad trades, some bad judgment by me. So I took a step back. So this was a bit of a breakdown. And then this is where I realized that I need to implement a max loss with my broker. And I contacted them and put in a max loss with them. So that was $10. I think it was $20, but then I reduced it to $10. That's, I think, where I started introducing that. And then, and everything, all of these is documented anyway. If you look at my YouTube, you'll see it there. And in November, you already know about it if you've watched it. Definitely a difficult month in terms of the volatility and momentum. These are actually no trade days. Big drastic shift for me in November was I started having no trade days. I've never had a no trade day. Of course, there were times where I just stopped trading because I just didn't want to put any money in the account. So that's what you could see earlier in July, I think, where I just didn't trade because at that point I was like, no, I cannot put money into the account anymore like this. But this is me off the back of August and September, where September, I was trading every day. That was it, like strict every day, certain time. And I was having no trade days. I was like, wow, this is progress. So even though it's a negative, sort of like a red month, big progress, huge progress. And you already know where I am for December. So December is looking to be a green month, but so far, a very small green month. But $2.36. I just couldn't, like the last 2 days of December, 18th and 19th of December last week, no trades. And I had sustained a big red day there, which was, I talked about, I discussed in my recap. But this is all positive. I mean, this has been my journey. I've been through a big roller coaster, and the fact that I came out and started taking it seriously, and I started journaling and reaching out to the community, I feel like I'm making progress. So you can see this, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. And that's why I'm really excited for 2026, because now I've got all these stats and I'm digging through them and trying to figure out what I need to do next. August was my prototype month. And I started looking at what was working. So if I go back to August here. And so I started looking at what was working and what that looks like. And then that continued into September, October. But the single biggest thing here, especially over the past few months, let's look at, I don't know, November, for instance, even though it's a negative, it's the red month, is that I started trading less, and then my stats stopped lying to me. So the data is cleaner, and I was able to sort of have small improvements which showed up early, and I was no longer really like hiding my mistakes behind volume, like tons and tons of trades, because it's so much easier to pick apart where you've gone wrong, where you've got less frequency of trades. I mean, how many trades did I take for that month? 37 trades. So that's very little. So this is what exactly I wanted, right? To narrow it down, to start focusing on the individual trades and working on my edge. But looking at my stats again, like for example, even like if you look at December, what's obvious here is that I'm still emotionally protecting my winners and negotiating with the losers. And I think until this really flips for me, this still can be quite fragile. So I will not be increasing size going forward, and I will not increase any of my trade frequency. I will not be adding any complexity, and I will not obviously also chase any high win rates. So technically, I'm not yet ready for expansion at this point, and I need to continue tightening things up. And that's something I kept talking about in my recaps as well. So the couple of things that I would start looking at is, and the rules that I'll introduce going forward is that I will time stop my losers. I really want to bring them below 1 minute. If something's not working, 30, 45 seconds, I'm going to cut it without any exceptions. And then I'm going to have a set target for my minimum winning target, right? So no full exits before at least 1 hour. So that will become clearer later on. And I know and only a partial allowed. So we can do partial at 1 hour or maybe full exit, depending on obviously what the tape level 2 is telling me. And then and the hard stop remains fixed, that I will not overtrade. I will not hold losers longer, and I will aim to have a better R&R going forward. So hopefully with a few minor tweaks plus everything else that I've been working on over the past few months, it will increase my profit factor without changing my entries and my strategy too much. All right, so I feel like this video is already quite long. So I might do another part where I'm talking about my exact plans of taking what position sizing and so on for next year, and the key things I want to focus on. But I felt like it was good to sort of dig a bit deeper into the stats. I hope you've stuck around and watched all the parts. I know it might be a bit broken here and there, but that was my deep dive into my stats for the entire year, and that's the truth, honest stats. I'm not hiding anything. I import everything onto TraderView. It's a very useful tool if you're not using it. They've got different tiers of it. I would definitely encourage you to use it because it gives you an overall view of where you stand, and you really need stats. You cannot be shooting from the hip. I think if you're wanting to make changes and making improvements, yes, you can capture them for sure on spreadsheets, as long as your trades are, you can manage those trades, the frequency of them. But whereas where I had quite a lot of trades, I'm glad I signed up for it, because I've been able to import those trades and just be able to look at them and look back at them. It's very useful. I don't think a spreadsheet alone can match the power of TradeView and the type of the depth of analysis that it actually offers you. Yeah, I think I'm going to wrap the video up here. There were a few other things that I wanted to talk about, but I'm going to cover those in a separate video, especially around share size and my count size, etc. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate you sticking around and appreciate the support, and I'll catch you guys next week.